All right, so we're diving into stake today. Specifically for our listeners out there, you want to kind of up your game at this crypto casino, right? And you come to the right place. We're going to go deeper than just, your basic tips. We're going pretty deep on strategy. And I think a great place to start with that is really that crucial foundation of bankroll management.
Yeah, you've got to have a solid foundation, right? It's like building a house. You don't start with the roof.
Yeah.
So bankroll management is where lasting success, I think, in ANY Casino begins.
And I've heard it said that managing your bankroll is almost more about psychology than it is about math. Is that kind of what makes this whole like 5% rule so important?
That's a really good point. When we risk small amounts, even if we're on a winning streak, our brains kind of perceive less risk and we're less likely to chase losses or make impulsive decisions because that 5% feels almost inconsequential compared to, our entire bankroll.
So it's like tricking your brain into staying rational even when those crypto dice are rolling. So let's say like I've got 1 ETH ready to go, ready to play. Does that mean I should only be risking 0.05 ETH at most, even if I'm on a hot streak?
Yeah, precisely. That 0.05 ETH, that becomes your session budget, so to speak, and it helps you create a really clear boundary. Now, some players are even more cautious, right? They might stick to a 1% rule, especially if they're new to a game or just starting out.
Okay, so I'm starting to kind of see how this works. So like someone had, let's say, zero point 0.1 BTC and they're playing a game like dice. Sticking with that 1% rule, it'd be like wagering what? 0.001 BTC per bet.
Yeah, exactly. That way, even if they have some losses, they're not really impacting their overall bankroll that much. They can kind of keep playing, learn the ropes, and hopefully hit that winning streak.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about the flip side of that? Let's say I am on a hot streak. I'm feeling invincible. Those emotions can be tough to ignore.
I know they can be, and that's where, preset limits can be your best friend. Like before you even place that first bet, you decide on a stop loss limit. Let's say, if I lose 25% of my bankroll, I'm walking away. No hesitation, no second guessing.
So you're taking the emotion out of it completely. You've set that rule. You're sticking to it.
Exactly. And the same thing goes for winning. If you're lucky enough to double your initial bankroll, that's a natural starting point. You enjoy the win, you step away, and you can always come back another time.
It's like that old saying, quit while you're ahead. This whole bankroll management thing, it really is all about discipline, isn't it?
It really is. It's about making, conscious, calculated decisions rather than letting your emotions kind of run the show, dictate your bets. And, that disciplined approach, it goes beyond just managing your money. It plays a big role in how you select the right games, too.
Now that is the perfect segue because you've piqued my curiosity. How does one choose the right game at a place like Stake? I mean, a crypto casino, you've got a ton of options.
Yeah, you're right. It is. It's like a playground for grown-ups, right? But just like on a playground, some of those rides are more your speed than others. And what I find interesting about Stake is their commitment to provably fair games, which is something you can definitely factor into your choices.
Provably fair. I hear that term thrown around a lot, but I'm honestly a little fuzzy on what that actually means.
Yeah, so it's a really cool concept, especially, if you're someone who's maybe a little wary of like traditional online casinos. Essentially, Stake uses these cryptographic algorithms to ensure that all their games are fair. So
Hmm.
it's like, think of it as like a digital fingerprint that's unique to each round that you play.
So it's not just like trusting that the game is fair. You can actually like verify it for yourself.
Exactly, exactly. Stake actually gives you the tools that allow you to go in and check the algorithm, the inputs, like everything. And that kind of transparency, it does a lot to build trust, and it ensures that you're playing on a level playing field. And you mentioned being interested in Dice, Plinko, and Limbo, all great choices. They each have like their own unique uh, characteristics, I guess. Where should we start?
Let's roll with dice first. It just seems like a pretty good entry point, right?
Yeah.
Straightforward, but maybe there's like some strategic depth there.
Yeah, for sure. You're spot on. Dice is known for being, really simple to understand and having a super low house edge, often around 1%. So that means for every dollar wagered, the house only keeps a cent on average, which is, those are much better odds compared to a lot of other casino games out there.
Okay, I'm all about tilting those odds in my favor.
Yeah.
So what's a good strategy for approaching a game like dice?
So a lot of seasoned players will recommend starting with lower multipliers, maybe around like 2x or 3x. This lets you kind of get a feel for the game, test your intuition a bit, maybe rack up some smaller wins early on.
So dip your toes in the water before you like jump in head first.
Exactly, exactly. And then as you start to get more comfortable and hopefully see a little success, you can gradually increase your risk, adjust that multiplier upwards. It's all about finding that balance, right? Between risk and reward and what aligns with your bankroll and what you're comfortable with.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, let's talk about Plinko. That just seems like a completely different beast. A little more unpredictable, maybe even like chaotic.
Yeah. Plinko is definitely known for it's definitely known for its high variance. It can be exhilarating, but also admittedly a little nerve-wracking.
So when you say variance, are we talking about like bigger swings, bigger wins, bigger losses?
Yeah, exactly. So variance in gambling terms basically means how much your wins and losses fluctuate around an average.
So high variance, bigger swings, both up and down.
You got it. So with Plinko, yeah, you could go for those like massive multipliers at the edges of the board, but that's a high risk, high reward strategy. You might land a huge win, but you could also, you could burn through your bankroll really fast.
So probably not for the faint of heart.
Probably not. A more balanced approach, especially for someone who's new to Plinko, might be to, aim for those kind of middle tier multipliers. They might not be as flashy or exciting, but it's a more consistent way to, hopefully grow your bankroll over time.
It's like the tortoise and the hare. Slow and
Oh,
steady wins the race, right?
exactly.
Exactly.
Now, what about limbo? I'm intrigued by this one just because you seem to have a lot more control over your risk level.
Yeah, limbo's super interesting because it allows for that player-controlled risk.
Yeah.
So you actually get to set your own multiplier before each round, which directly influences, your potential payout, but also the probability of you winning. So higher multiplier, bigger payout potential, but also lower chance of winning.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about finding that sweet spot. A lot of people who are, really into limbo, they find a good balance in that kind of 1.5 to 2x multiplier range. It offers a decent balance, I think, between risk and reward, making it suitable for players who would rather kind of grind out those smaller, consistent wins rather than going for like those big risky bets.
So it's more about playing the long game strategically. Now, we talked earlier about the 5% rule for your bankroll management, but I'm guessing there's like more specific betting strategies that you can like apply to specific games.
You bet. And you actually mentioned one earlier, the paroli system, which can be very effective with a game like dice.
Right. Tell me a little more about that. That one almost sounded like kind of the opposite of that bet more when you lose strategy I've always heard about.
Yeah, that's a great observation. A paroli system is all about like riding those winning streaks, but minimizing your losses during those, inevitable cold streaks that every gambler runs into. So yeah, instead of increasing your bet after a loss, you actually increase it after a win.
Okay, so walk me through how this would actually work in a real game. Let's say dice.
All right, so let's say you're starting with a bet of 0.001 BTC on dice. Now, if you win that round, you would then increase your next bet to 0.0002, and if you win again, you bump it up again to 0.0004.
So you're letting your winnings ride, but in a very controlled way.
Exactly. But here's the key. Once you hit 3 wins in a row, you reset your bet back down to that original 0.001 BTC. So that way you're not getting too greedy, you're not risking too much of those winnings. It's a strategy that encourages you to take profits while the going is good.
That is a really, really clever approach. Yeah. And it does seem a lot less stressful than like constantly chasing those losses. But for the folks out there who live for that thrill, who don't mind riding that roller coaster a little bit, are there like more advanced, higher risk strategies that they could look into?
Oh, absolutely. If you're ready to jump in the fast lane, we can talk about things like the martingale or the reverse martingale. But remember, the higher the potential reward, the higher the risk as well.
Well, you definitely have my attention. Lay it on me. What are the ins and outs of those high-stakes strategies?
Buckle up, because the martingale, this is not for those who, scare easily.
I'm strapped in. Hit me.
Okay, so picture this. You place your bet, right? And you lose. But instead of backing off, you double down on that next bet, hoping to not only win back what you lost, but then some. And if you lose again, you just double down again. So the whole idea with the martingale is that eventually you're going to hit that win, and when you do, it's going to make up for all those previous losses.
Okay, so high risk, but potentially huge reward if you can just get that win.
Exactly. But, and this is a big but, you need a pretty hefty bankroll to make this strategy work, because think about it, a string of losses could really drain your funds quickly, especially since you're doubling down every time.
Yeah, you don't want to dig yourself into a hole.
You got it. Now, on the flip side, we've got the reverse martingale. And this is kind of all about riding the wave of those hot streaks. So instead of increasing your bet after a loss, you actually increase it after a win.
So if I'm on fire, I'm just going to keep adding fuel to that fire.
Exactly. So let's say you're playing Crash, right? And you get a nice 2x multiplier win. So with the reverse martingale, you would double your next bet, kind of capitalize on that momentum, and another win, double down again. Of course, you'd probably want to, set some limits to protect those profits, maybe reset your bet after 3, 4 wins or something like that.
I like it. So a way to maximize those winning streaks, but, stay somewhat grounded.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for those who are a little more analytically minded, there's the Kelly Criterion. This one's less about, gut feeling and more about the math behind it.
Ooh, I love a good formula. Break it down for me.
Okay, so basically, the Kelly Criterion, it helps you figure out the best bet size based on your edge in the game. So let's say, for example, you're playing Crash, and you think there's about a 60% chance that the crash point is going to be above 2x, right? The Kelly Criterion would actually tell you, like, how much to wager based on that probability and your bankroll.
So it's kind of like taking the guesswork out of it and letting the math guide your decisions.
You got it. It's definitely a more calculated approach, aims to, boost those returns while still being mindful of that risk.
And that's what it's all about. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, really explored a ton of different strategies for upping your game at stake. But there's one thing I hope our listeners take away from all of this. It's that knowledge is power, but discipline. That's really the key to success. Whether it's managing your bankroll, understanding those games inside and out, or choosing the strategies that work best for you, make those decisions consciously and always be informed. And if you're lucky enough to hit that hot streak, enjoy the ride, but know when to walk away. Until next time, happy gaming, and may the odds be ever in your favor.